Greetings all, this is Gerald Clark with you today on December 10th, 2017. Today's topics that I'm going to explore will look more into the details on the exopolitical events that you're seeing in the headlines that I'm sure have your attention. So I'm going to give you my 4D chess analysis from my remote detached perspective of what I see to share it with you all. Thanks for watching. First, before delving into today's topics, I wanted to discuss my family lineage with you all. I've never really talked about it before, but it was kind of a process of discovery for me as well. So on my mother's side, my great-grandparents immigrated to the United States from Minsk, Russia, circa 1891. And I guess there was much turmoil that caused them to leave. My great-grandfather's name was Zeta, that's what we called him. He was a Jewish rabbi from the tribe of Levi, and I got this from a genealogy table that my brother had from the family that he left and was carried on by my mom's sister, and I have a copy of that. So this seems to be true. They immigrated to the United States and settled at various locations. One of them, I believe, was in Kentucky, and the other ended up being Chicago or Denver area. My mother was raised in a Jewish household and later converted to Christianity, as did her sister, who they both live in the Midwest right now. One lives in southern Missouri, the other lives in northwest Arkansas. And as a child, from the age of 7 till 17, I grew up in Arkansas. I was exposed to Baptist churches unavoidably. And that area is still very much part of the Bible Belt today. And we visited and worked with people back there. So I think that's still true. The mega churches are amazing. So after spending most of my adult life involved with Baptist church, Southern Baptist, and Catholic teachings for 14 years, I had a pretty strong background in all things religious on my awakening path. So I definitely identify with all those who are in the process of what I call breaking their God spell. It's quite a process. So I too, because of the lineage, I'm from the Levitical genealogy line, and it turned out Krista is as well through her father's side. So I thought that was quite a surprise. So as you all know, the Levites in the Judaism religion are the priests. And they conduct rites in the temple and things like that on behalf of their God. So as part of our priestly service to humanity, I want you to know that I belong to no religion at this point. I'm affiliated with no handlers or hidden agenda, whether it's Zionist, Enlil-Yahweh. I'm a completely free agent. And my sole mission is to share my map with you as I experience the illusion of this transient material existence as an eternal being having a material experience. And I see this as just a stop along our collective path. So with that said, I have to say we watched the movie Mr. Nobody yesterday. And for those of you that haven't seen that, and the concepts that they use to discuss parallel realities and freedom and choice, and your path, I thought it was very, very telling. So Mr. Nobody, for those of you that haven't seen it. Okay, I told you this family lineage story because when I was reading in Exodus 32, 20 to 27 in that area, partly about Starfire Gold and partly about where the golden calf shows up, and Aaron fashions this because Moses doesn't come down from the mountain quick enough. Anyway, in this account, around line 27 is where Yahweh has drawn a line in the sand and orders the Levites to kill all those who oppose to him. And I was like, wow. By this time, I knew that I was looking at Enlil here and his burning bush at Hathor's temple on Mount Serebet, Yel-Kadim, and I was like, yikes! What a heritage to inherit. Okay, and I actually show. From the Anunnaki Genesis, their prehistory on Nibiru, all the way down to the 12 tribes of Israel. And I did that on purpose because that's a good launching point for people to put all the pieces together. So, and for me, being from the tribe of Levi, it was important for me to do that. So that's why I did that. And, you know, even back in the Old Testament, this God of wrath and vengeance, Enlil, he's ordering these Levites to murder their fellow man. And I wonder if they knew they were serving an ancient astronaut who really didn't care for them at all as a species. And you can see this in the Atrahasis, how many plagues and diseases he brought on mankind. So for those now aware of Starfire Gold, this is a white talcum powder elixir. Exodus 32:20 to 27 will make a lot more sense why Aaron melted the gold into a powder. Listen, when you melt gold, it doesn't turn into a powder, it turns into a molten metal. That only is possible if you use antimony or stibium added to the gold at various temperatures to cause it to turn into this substance we call Starfire Gold. Well, if you read that account again, Aaron sprinkled it in the water and had the Israelites that were in exile there along with him drink it right before Enlil-Yahweh ordered these Levitical priests to take a sword to their brethren. So what was Aaron trying to do? Was he trying to wake them up beyond their first red chakra following this guy as an alchemist so that they would know the difference between right and wrong and not do what he asked them to do? Possibly, don't really know. But I found that interesting. The first equation of the substance we talk about is mana, or white powder from from the gods, and this particular instance. So there you go. So anyway, what I wanted to emphasize is being from the tribe of Levi and seeing this, it caused me to take a very strong stance on who I believed the creator of all was, and whether it would be a god as they've described Yahweh telling them to do these kind of things to each other. I seriously doubted at that point, and it caused my head to start spinning as I started waking up from the lies that had been perpetuated by the Enlil clan through the Bible. Anyway, during my study of the early Sumer documents, including the Lamentations of Ur, Atrahasis, among many others, I focused on who Abram was relative to the clear Anunnaki control of the cities and temples in Mesopotamia and Sumer. The one I really focused on, the Bible refers to as the city of Ur, where Nanar, son of Enlil, was the second dynastic ruler. And the Bible refers to it as Ur of the Chaldees. Okay. I recently read a book by George Smith titled The Chaldean Genesis that he wrote in 1870. So for all those that like to bash later Sumerian cuneiform tablet translators by taking an axe to their heels and trying to make everything they did invalid, even George Smith, way back when he did his translations, there were certain, I don't know, vowels or consonants that they hadn't quite figured out yet. So some of the names aren't exactly right, but the story is the same. Anyway, I have that book thanks to it being gifted to me by Zechariah Lang, a good buddy of mine. He actually went and bought the book and had it sent to me, and I really treasure it. Thanks, Zach, for doing that. It's a very important book to understand the alternative story of man's account from the cuneiform tablets that goes way, way, way back to the beginning. And you have to remember, George Smith was working at the British Museum, okay, as a translator at the time of his book's authoring. And he was traveling, doing lectures and things like that about what he was finding. Anyway, let's go back to Abram. He was from the city of Ur, where his father served Enlil-Yahweh as the lead temple priest. His name was Terah, okay, T-E-R-A-H. This key point is the reason why Enlil chose Abram. He was groomed to be a military leader and was sent to conduct genocidal war in the Promised Land that used to belong to Enki's offspring, by the way, all the Canaanites and the Phoenicians, and to become the patriarch of Christianity, Judaism, and Islam. And I want to ask people who are part of these religions, and I've been part of this one and part of this one, I wasn't actually part of this one. My mother was raised in the Jewish faith. So I want to ask, has anyone ever considered why all three of these consider Abram to be the patriarch, and not really going back to where he was from and who his father was and who he was serving? I mean, my goodness, he was a military general that was groomed by Enlil, even going to Egypt to get supplies and things to come back and wage war. So this was a warring being Enlil was, and you can see this. I mentioned the Lamentations of Ur. Krista and I recorded that on YouTube for you all, and I'll try to leave a link in this video to point it out. But this is a first-hand account of Nanar, and he's called Nani in the account. He shows up in the Sumerian Kings list, and his wife Ningal, as they experienced the wrath of Enlil and his father Anu, deciding to destroy Ur. Okay, so this was the second dynasty of Ur. So it kind of became clear to me that the Lord of the Command here on behalf of the Anunnaki mission was also the God of wrath and vengeance of the Bible. It was right there in black and white. So later I confirmed this data with a Vatican translator named Mauro Bellino, who also had published similar details about our true history origins, even though he had come from the Vatican, I can't remember which name of the Hebrew text that he was translating at the time, but he had translated over 17 books for the Vatican when he discovered that basically the Sumer documents were the origins of all the Hebrew documents, and they had been rewritten to serve basically the tribe of Israel and not the whole world like it's been perpetuated. So what I want to say is the God of America and Israel are one and the same being. It's Enlil-Yahweh. I mean, it always has been. So this might explain the United States ties with Israel since this Balfour Declaration at the end of World War II. And I guess it was about 1948 when it was established. Okay, so this is what the historical precedence was for establishing the disparate tribes of Israel to give them a nation. Okay, so now you may see why the White House visitor, and this is kind of off the cuff, an early ancient astronaut, lobbyist, Valiant Thor, and look him up if you don't know who this is, Valiant Thor, okay? Very, very important figure who shows up in the White House pretty much predicating foreign and domestic policy around the time he showed up. And this was none other than Enlil, and he helped set up America for its future destruction. Okay. By the way, I do have a table of the Viking gods, if you will, same ones that are mentioned in Conan the Barbarian with Thor and Crom and so on and so forth. Well, these mapped it exactly to the Anunnaki gods, and Thor was Enlil. Okay. So just so you know. Anyway, let's go to Marvel while we're talking about Thor and how he's been portrayed to people in the media. Marvel Entertainment Studios has taken extreme liberty with the true history portraying Thor as the protector of humanity. Okay, I have to take issue that this is a total inversion of the truth. Enlil hated humans, and he often participated or ordered them destroyed as the god of wrath and vengeance that the followers of Judaism have been completely ambushed into following. This is where the term fear of God originated. What a concept to harbor, to be afraid of your creator. This is idiocracy. This is where the full view of what's transpiring starts to unveil or be unraveled, okay? Let's go back to recall that Sir Francis Bacon wrote a book about the new Atlantis being planned in America, okay? Long, long ago. And this plan went forward and had significant Masonic influence, the likes of George Washington, dressed in full garb at many events in the past. And so we all know that the Masons were involved with the establishing of Washington, D.C. And part of the genesis was to achieve this plan of creating a place to establish the new Atlantis, okay? So then you can start looking at the symbols in the streets and blah, 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 and say, okay, well, what is this? What were the plans for the new Atlantis? And you start seeing lots of interesting things. Okay, the original plan to establish a place for the new Atlantis with symbolism and geometry adorning the place, including a clear connection to the Egyptian gods and traditions and statues galore, was under the guidance of Nishita Thoth, as his depiction is shown in the U.S. Capitol Dome building on a ceiling fresco where he funded the Revolutionary War, providing Robert Morris a bag of gold. Okay, and Enki is shown just beside him in a nautical vessel. Looks like with some mermaids, holding his trident. And in that fresco, he's laying out the transatlantic cables as part of the communication infrastructures that was to come as part of this headquarters, okay? So let's go back to 1895, because as I've written, and this agrees with Lawrence Gardner's work, I wrote in the Seventh Planet Mercury Rising that the mystery schools that were originally set up to offer an alchemical transformation as part of the elevation of human consciousness were infiltrated. Remember the mystery schools back along Egypt's Nile? There were 12 of them under Thoth, okay? This is the same master architect who was displaced in the Masonic York Rite by none other than the god of Christianity, Enlil. That happened in 1895, as I wrote, okay? That is not to say that Anu, whose father is not in on the control mechanism set up by the three worlds religions, with Abram as the patriarch. Did you ever ask yourself why the faithful of Islam pray 5 times a day to Abram and Allah? Nanar, the son of Enlil, was the moon god in Mesopotamia and had a temple both in Ur, very key, okay, and in Haran. This is where a whole caravan from, including Abram's family, migrated to Haran, where they used this as a staging area to launch their genocidal assault to clear the land of Canaan, okay, or this promised land. It wasn't empty, okay. So this city was named after Abram's brother, okay, Haran, who also was from Ur or Nippur area. So yes, without a doubt, Nanar Sin, who is Nani in the Sumerians' kings list, the one on the, he's actually the one in the second dynasty that I read in the Lamentations of Ur. He's listed there. He's the very one that occupied the city when Anu and Enlil decided to destroy it. Okay, so I really want you guys to listen to this Lamentations or read it in the book. I think it's in my early chapters, chapter 3 or chapter 4. So you can, in the 7 Planet Mercury Rising, so you can get a first-hand account from Nanar and his wife Ningal of what went down. Okay, so you can get an idea about the controller, his father in Mesopotamia, because you have to go back to the Atrahasis. They cast lots and the region was given to Enlil. Okay, so we have clear evidence from that document that he was in that area, and now we have Terah, his father, a first-hand account working for Enlil-Yahweh, okay? So now you know why I pointed this out so significantly, and I'm not here to bash anybody's religion. I want everybody to know that this being who's been here since our creation account is the one who set up your religion, and he's controlling you, okay? And to make one people, the chosen people of this so-called God, he's not God, okay? He's an ancient astronaut with an agenda. Well, to make one people a chosen people such that all else are lessers, this is racism at the very heart of what's been established by Judaism. And that also, for me, is a big red flag. No creator of all would be down with racism. Okay, so keep that in mind. So, so I don't know whether I'm a goyim, a Gentile, or what. Okay, I'll tell you what I am. I'm a would-be Levitical priest that's going to make you stare down the long carbine of reason while I show it right to your face. That's who I am. So, now is an important question. Who, if anyone, does the U.S. president answer to? Okay, does he solely answer to the people as he claims? Okay, given the fact that he's in Enlil's territory, America, the sign of the eagle, there is no question in my mind that for him to become president, that his agenda is overseen by Enlil and his factions, especially those from Israel, because that's where Enlil's temple is. You have to remember, Nippur was the mission control center for the Anunnaki, where they coordinated aircraft taking off and landing from Sapar, okay, which was located south of Babylon. Well, when the area was flooded, they moved most of their facilities up to higher ground, and Jerusalem became Enlil's mission headquarters for coordinating the bond heaven-earth communications and vessels, whether rockets or whatever they were using, to transport things back and forth to Nibiru, or the moon or Mars as way stations once they got close enough in proximity to make the transfer, okay, or make the transfer. And Enlil loved to be praised. He made sure it was on the U.S. currency, in God we trust. How many names of God are there, by the way, on the planet right now? I think the last I read there were 3,300. So to claim that you are the creator of all and that you're on this planet, wow, you sure as hell don't act like it. Okay, all I see is wrath and vengeance that's been going on since the Old Testament. Okay, just pure destruction. And this "in God we trust," Really? Printed on our Federal Reserve notes that are made by Jewish bankers running the Federal Reserve? This is the debt mechanism of enslavement for all Americans. Wow. How could you swallow that? By the way, coins too have to say it. So, given the success of a real estate tycoon like Donald Trump in America and in his territory, he equates greatness of a nation to its wealth. Make America great again. Yeah, well, America set up the biggest Ponzi scheme on the planet with the petrodollar, stealing oil for paper, while everyone else got monetized relative to that paper, and then their resources stolen. Oh yeah, that makes us great. That we ran the greatest Ponzi scheme on the planet in conjunction with Saudi Arabia, while we supposedly protected them, okay? And we started using Israel as a nation as a proxy agent to do the same kind of thing, to control that region, to have access to the resources of the Middle East, okay? Well, he was a perfect fit to man the sinking civilization experiment that's been titled America, in my opinion, okay? And after his last speech I just heard in Florida, all I heard was, how much did I put in your pocket? Have you seen the wealth go up? What about your 401k? Are you feeling more comfortable? What's the consumer confidence level? I mean, this is the idea that great equals wealth. And if you got your money, you got your security, and it's all good. So you placate the working slave with monetary gain, and it's all good, right? Well, that's happening now. Then what? Okay? Really, if I were to look at this, the Federal Reserve is still in place. You're still a debt slave to it. The Jewish bankers that are in control of the Federal Reserve are still taking your money. And now, if Donald Trump can go and round up money from all over the world by renegotiating trade deals, arrest a bunch of people who are part of his opposition that have funds that they've stolen, wow, what if he could bring in $20 trillion and make the debt go away? Okay? See what I'm saying? Well, where do you think that money's going to go? His handlers are looking to scoop up more. So this looks like a money grab to me right at the end. And he's part of it, and I hope he's proud of himself. Now let's address another curiosity about the last election with President Trump. From the very beginning, the deep state-controlled media was making sure that Russia was demonized to keep candidate Trump from communicating or cooperating with Russian President Putin. One has to ask yourself, why? Was this just a continuation of the Cold War? Bad relations? If you go read in my book, Seventh Planet, I talked about the relations of the U.S. with Russia during World War I and II, and they were both aligned on the same side. So what happened, okay? Why would President Trump's Israeli handlers, okay, and I'm just going to say it right now, okay, he's not solely working for the people. He's in cahoots with Israel in a big way, and you can see that with recent events. Why would Israel's handler not want him to communicate with another world leader, especially one from Russia? Could it be due to the fact that a contract or alliance exists between Russia and an alien force that is opposed to the New World Order gang? With the BRICS establishment and all the things that Putin has done? He's now out talking directly against the New World Order. He doesn't want to be a part of it. He wants to have a sovereign nation, okay? So that's not a hiccup of a superpower that the New World Order forces really had anticipated. So now you see why they've surrounded Russia, surrounded China militarily to force them to go along with their New World Order gang. Okay, I don't think that's going to happen. Okay, that seems to have been the case since the end of World War II, when the arms race between superpowers accelerated through the Cold War era, and has never really ended, even though supposedly it did when the Soviet Union broke up, but it didn't end. Given the rapid technological advancements seen in Russia since the breakup of the Soviet Union, I guess that was about 1990, it's clear they've gotten access to some of the most advanced alien technology, much like Germany and the United States did via contracts with the likes of the Greys from the Markov Federation in 1934 and again in 1954, only 20 years later under Eisenhower. Okay, so they were trading them technology for anonymity and access to resources on the planet. Leave us alone, we'll leave you alone, kind of thing. Well, that didn't quite work out. My analysis shows that Russia is being steered by forces that are opposed to the New World Order. Now, New World Order Anunnaki factions, okay? And I see this as Enki, or Enlil and Marduk as in factions with other races, okay? And these are of these are factions of alien origins, and my best guess is Enki and his clan, in conjunction with other benevolent forces, are in an alliance, okay? And I believe they're in alliance with President Putin, and probably the other nations that are signing up in BRICS, if I had to guess, even though that's clear speculation on my part. Anyway, in the Alien Roswell interview, it discusses the fact that Enki is aligned with a domain force, Ahura Mazda is, and his symbol is the trident. Okay, so don't as Poseidon. So that's the connection with the symbols on the Ukrainian flag and on the Russian Navy is this trident. Okay, so in spite of the U.S. I'm just going to say it, the U.S. Jewish or Zionist-controlled media being controlled, in spite of that, okay, they were participating in a witch hunt for Russian collusion against Donald Trump, even though they're the ones partly responsible for getting him elected. So this was probably a distancing technique to make it look like they weren't the ones that are controlling him, but in reality he is. And so the reality is he is still working within their messaging boundaries set up by his handlers that surround him in his current administration. And I think it's very telling indeed. And you know who does a good job of analyzing his current administration, folks, is a really interesting cat named Brother Nathaniel. And actually, I want to also give a call out to, at this point, to David Icke. He did a video podcast here recently, basically showing Donald Trump with a super Zionist shirt on the front of it. And I listened to his podcast. And I have to say, I'm very much becoming more and more in line with the thinking that David Icke is involved with. And I want to congratulate him on writing his 16th book. Wow. He inspires me. So back to this report. I do want to say that a lot of this could never be known at the security level all of us are at, so it's complete speculation on my part. All I'm doing is connecting the best dots that I can based on what we're seeing, okay, and what we're allowed to see, okay? And without the security access to know, we'll never know. So, but here it goes, okay? I believe Enki and his clan are working or in contract with President Putin, boom. And I think they have been since probably the time that Paperclip moved to the United States at the end of World War II, and Enlil ended up in America, and Enki ended up at the other superpower, which was Russia. So I think he's been there since the end of World War II, if I had to guess. America is being controlled for a short time longer by the agents of the New World Order under Enlil and Marduk et al. Okay, and President Trump was chosen, from what I can tell, okay, not by Enki, but chosen by the Zionists as the hatchet man on behalf of Enlil, to destroy all those that have fallen prey to his cultural ensnarements, which also probably include the Draco and the Greys to help slay the kingdoms and their leaders with their hidden craft. Okay, this is the Bohemian Grove rites and other rites that involve blood and rituals, so that the Draco can occupy their bodies and look like humans, but walk around with no soul, no human soul, cannot be reasoned with, and are sheerly perpetuating the agenda that's given to them in their higher level alliance with what I believe is Enlil and Marduk. So, as predicted, it's judgment time for Enlil to have his way with the fallen, and I'm talking about the United States, and any affiliation, any civilization that's been set up and taken to debauchery and destroyed from the inside, through cultural and other means like the U.S. has, and I truly see it as completely fallen. Enlil gets brought in to do the destruction, just like he did in Atlantis. And you can read this in Plato's documents. Right when Atlantis fell, Zeus got brought in to do the destroying. Well, this is Enlil, okay? Well, so while at the same time, Trump is making way President Trump is making way for the Enki clan as they reestablish Atlantis rising at none other than Washington, D.C., as planned all along. So you've got the headquarters of the New World Order and the intended headquarters for the new Atlantis, for the new age, all in the same place at the same time. I wonder if that's a coincidence. I doubt it. So, as Enki stated in his anonymous message, I, along with my fellow gods, have created and destroyed many civilizations. And it seems like Enki and his clan established a societal experiment, and if it fails, like they all do eventually. Have you ever seen a society that continued? Not every one of them has fallen. Read the book Collapse by Jared Diamond. Okay, then Enlil gets to play the destroyer role and dismantle the fallen kingdom. Okay, that's the role they play with the creator and the destroyer. And I've said this many times, and they may switch roles occasionally. He did this many times in the Sumerian Kings list, this merry-go-round of moving headquarters for the king, as evidenced by the number of times the kingship moved from one rubble heap to the next, thanks to its destructive nature. And I love the description in the Sumerian Kings list about how the kingdoms were destroyed. You don't get this detail unless you read something like the Lamentations of War. And this kingship came to an end and it moved over here. Well, then you find out that it was nuked and there were massive destruction and war. Okay, it leaves all that part out. So what does this imply for America? Okay, and I actually doing this because I do care, even though I'm not religious or not really political anymore. I do care about what's happening to the human populace. If President Trump is playing his role as part of the New World Order plans under Enlil, and at the same time doing what is required for the handover of power to the new Enkiite clan and their Domain Force Alliance, this might be what we're seeing. The question is whether Donald J. Trump will be used to cause Albert Pike's 1871 prediction for World War III, okay? Because they're aligned with the same ones that are controlling him through Zionism. So based on what he's done on behalf of this Zionist, his Zionist handlers so far, it's almost certain, okay? I want to point out a couple things, and these things don't need to be happening, okay? But it's part of an agenda to create order out of chaos. We've seen for a while now that Russia and China have been basically surrounded from various angles by the United States military, okay? And the encroachment by NATO on Putin's borders, even though they swore they wouldn't in the agreement, still happened, okay? So they've pushed this agenda and this creeping borders to create a conflict and trying to control shipping lanes, renegotiating trade pacts to try to marginalize the other one, the enemy, okay? So any nation that's sovereign, that's not going along with the New World Order plans right now for a one world government, a one world religion, and a one world currency, they're being targeted, and that should be pretty obvious. So I wanna do a call out to President Putin and the other leaders of their countries that want to have sovereign nations and not be controlled by this, that what they're doing is heroic, and it'll go down in history as a very significant event of a sovereign act of people who want to be free. So with that said, I'm going to end this conversation today. I have a lot more to say about this, but I had some hope that maybe by pointing out deep state operatives that were doing horrible things on behalf of ancient astronauts running Dracos and Greys on this planet, that President Trump was on Enki's side. And maybe he's a double agent. I have no idea, and I don't want to stir up the crick. But I'm telling you what, by handing Jerusalem to Israel and not even giving any consideration to the people that were conquered there. Now, this could go two ways, by the way. If they had announced, hey, we're going to have one state capital right here. You guys all have religious headquarters here. We are no longer going to be racist, so everybody is going to be a citizen with the same rights, okay? And you can pray wherever you want. Now, had they done that, they wouldn't have this problem, okay? And you could call that a one-state solution, okay, if you want. So everybody that's here, it's like, okay, you're here now, and then we'll set up an immigration policy like every other country does. But they didn't do that. They said, you know, it's going to be this new capital and no resolution for the Palestinians that have been slowly eradicated through their housing expansion developments. Okay, so the fact that they didn't address that tells me that this is not what they intend. They intend to get everybody out, and whether it's done through slow motion immigration exports or being put in exile because they don't want you there, that could happen slowly, and they could continue to get the rest of the Palestinians out of Israel. But that's not going to be any solution either. So the fact that that was treated in that manner, and that they were not treated as equal in human eyes, versus treated as subservient, subhuman, and you can see this how they've been treated in the Gaza and the West Bank. They've been treated as subhuman people. Okay, that's disgusting, and any leader who's perpetuated that ought to be held accountable for it. And I'm talking about Benjamin Netanyahu directly, and the others that have done it as well. This has been going on since 1948. And then got even worse after the 6-Day War, where they stole the region from Syria. Okay, so I think I've said enough about that, but I'm telling you what, the world's watching, and we see what's happening. And if you continue serving the God of wrath and vengeance, who's an ancient astronaut, an Anunnaki who doesn't give a rat's ass about you as humanity, you're going to get what you got coming. Okay, this is Gerald Clark, and we out. I'll be back next time with more 4D chess analysis. This has been Gerald Clark, 7 Planet Broadcasting, and we out.